Hey Leo, welcome to your timeless reading. I trust that this will resonate with you at the time and place you find it. But, if it doesn't, no worries. It's maybe not your message, or always use your discernment when listening to tarot readings. Because, frankly, I'm just a random stranger on the internet to you. But, if I say stuff that, you're like, yeah, that sounds right. That's what I've been thinking about. Then cool. That's what this is for. Okay, I pulled a bunch of cards for you. And I pulled from my Rider-Waite deck and from my Iris Oracle. So I'll go over the cards first. Knight of Pentacles, Four of Swords in reverse, Queen of Cups, King of Swords, Knight of Swords in reverse, the Devil, the Magician, Three of Wands. You can't find goodness because you lost your heart. Yikes. Just kidding. The Gallery of Those Who Came Before. Twin. And Laughing and Crying. Okay, Leo. I think I got it. I started doing your reading. And I was like, damn, all these readings I'm doing are feel super repetitive. So then I stopped because I kind of got in my own head. But it's okay. If these readings are, it seems like collectively we're all kind of going through similar things. We're going through collectively right now, as of me doing these readings, a little bit of a reframing of who we are, and that's certainly true for you. But I think it's particularly coming up in the space of career. But, beyond career, it's, your legacy or how you are bringing your gifts into the world. That's kind of specifically what it feels like you're dealing with, Leo, is how you commune with the community. I've got the Gallery of Those Who Came Before. So this card talks about how, especially within art, but within anything, there's, these traditions and patterns that get established within a form or a medium, and then people start teaching it as this is the way things are done in this respect. So for example, in this example, it'd be this is how you draw a butterfly. This is the form of the butterfly takes place. But for you, Leo, you're oh, maybe I want to do a different kind of butterfly, or this weird avant-garde butterfly that's never been done before. The example that I was giving earlier when I was initially doing your reading was to me, I think of late night talk shows. That was a very popular medium from the 60s or so into well into the 90s, this 40 or so span of this is the way things are done with talk shows, and they're so important, and to be on one is a great honor, etc., etc. But now with the advent of the internet, it's people don't really pay attention to late night talk shows in the same way that they did. And now different things on the internet are gaining popularity, etc., etc. So this card to me speaks a little bit about being a maverick, learning from the past way of doing things, but also not being afraid of pioneering your own ways of kind of approaching whatever it is that you do in the world, or your art, or kind of breaking formalities, breaking tradition, and kind of painting a new picture, perhaps literally, perhaps just metaphorically. And then I also got, this Devil in reverse, as well as the Magician and the Three of Wands. So those were other things I was talking about, is Devil in reverse feels maybe in the past you've been kind of feeling chained to this idea of how things are done, and really trying to fit yourself into that mold to be successful in that endeavor. And if I was to try to think of a specific example, maybe it's corporate ladders, right? That's an example. People, and this is kind of even a conversation I have with my family a lot, where they're oh, well, you might need to take a job you don't want because that might help you climb the ladder and get the opportunity you do want, and it's all about meeting people, blah, blah, blah. And, I get that. I understand that theory, but I'm like thinking, for me, like I feel called to be more of an entrepreneur. For example, I love doing these tarot readings. Maybe I want success as a tarot reader, and there's no corporate ladder when it comes to tarot readings, right? There's just sort of me and you and the internet and our connection and whether or not we're gonna like work together. It's kind of more of a one-on-one thing rather than like me working in the context of a corporation. Meaning, that's sort of the vibe for you, Leo, is like, I think you're just breaking free of a lot of like other people's telling you how it is, telling you what to do, telling you what your approach needs to be, or because like we also got the Knight of Pentacles, and that was another reason I kind of felt that a lot of your reading feels specific to career and legacy and just like how you commune with community, as I was saying earlier. Like, I think what you're looking at, Leo, is, and you're looking at how you give your gifts and how you can best express yourself and how you can best offer what it is you have to offer. Particularly with these two, right? Like, you are fixed fire. And I love Leos. I find them to be very warm, very generous, very funny. And like, Leos do like attention. I think Leos typically like admiration. But the thing is about Leos, from my perspective as a Cancer, I think that the reason why Leos like attention and admiration is because they know it's working, right? It's like, if you're a fixed fire, then what is your purpose in life, really, right? Like, if you think about fixed fire as like a fire on a deserted island, you think about a lighthouse, you think about a campfire. Like, the purpose of fixed fire, light in one spot, is to draw people around it, to build community, to connect, to help people go in the right direction. And so it's like there's a reason, a rhyme and a reason to who you are, why you are, and I think you're really getting in touch with that and understanding yourself on these deeper levels. And so I think as a result of you really like understanding yourself and honoring yourself, you're also in this position where you're like, yeah, I need to start doing things differently than how I was taught to do them. I need to start doing things differently than how I was taught to do them. And I'm going to build what it is that's really true to like me being authentic to myself and giving those gifts, right? Like, I don't know. I can't think of examples, but the Magician, manifesting energy, meaning like you have everything that you need at your disposal. This is all the suits, cups, pentacles, swords, wands, all together with the infinity symbol, kind of like there are infinite potentials. And the Three of Wands is like a perfect card to pair with it, meaning like, where can I go from here? I just watched Pocahontas 2, and one of the songs is like, where do I go from here? And it's like so many voices in my ear, but like I need to listen to myself, basically, is what she's saying. That movie is probably problematic. We don't need to talk about it too much, but that song was good, and it like really felt like kind of the vibe of the moment for a lot of signs, but particularly for you, it's like, where do I go from here? And I think it's also knowing that where you go might not have been invented yet, especially with this. So this is very, very silly, but maybe it's like you're fixed fire. So you're a lighthouse, and people your whole life have been telling you like the way to be a lighthouse professionally is to go on a cliff and stand there. And you've been doing that, and it's like no one's coming to your cliff, and you're like, why am I here? Like, I'm doing as good of a job shining my light as I can, but I feel like I'm not getting the kind of feedback I want. And the feedback, admiration, or attention doesn't mean you're vain or selfish. It means you're like, I don't think this is working. And maybe you're realizing like, oh, I can create like a website. This is so stupid. Forgive me. I can make a website where I can show me being a lighthouse and people will come to the site. But I'm just saying, like, there are ways of fulfilling your purpose in life that might be something like no one's ever made a website about a campfire before, and, you know, people might be doubting you, but this really feels, oh my god, the worst examples. But I think you get the vibe and the point and the idea, which is like being a maverick, being a person who thinks for themselves. Speaking of thinking for yourself, I mean, I was kind of drawn to these air energies, the Knight of Swords in reverse and the King of Swords. And a lot of this has to do with communication and ideas and stories and how you kind of put your message out there. With the Knight of Swords in reverse, I feel like maybe there's some fine-tuning to do regarding like what your message is still. Like, even though you probably are like at a space, Leo, where you're like, okay, what I'm doing isn't working. I know I want to do it a new way. I know that the way I'm planning on doing it has never really been done before. And I know that I'm kind of like inventing it a little bit as I go, like kind of stepping into the unknown of, I would say, infinite possibilities of how this all pans out or where it goes. And I'm kind of going to like maybe even improvise a little bit along the way of like, yeah, like kind of learning on the job and kind of creating it as I go. And it's totally valid, but it does feel like with the Knight of Swords in reverse that there is still a lack of clarity around maybe just some important key elements of how it is you're going to do what you're going to do, or why it is you're going to do what you're going to do. Like, to bring it back to this and the idea of like breaking forms and creating your own way of doing things. It's like, I think that you might need to let yourself have room to do what you're going to try to do privately first, is sort of my personal instinct. I also got this Four of Swords in reverse, and this is a card about like rest and recovery. With it in reverse, it kind of feels like being ready to step out again out of like a long period of rest and recovery and meditation. But I think that there's sort of a need or a moment or a call for you to like let yourself have your moment with yourself before you put yourself out there. And another example of that is, whoops, you can't find your goodness because you lost your heart. This card talks about how like sometimes we just get so like weighed down by life that we can kind of like have a hard time, like we can get a little numb, I would say, is sort of the vibe of this. Is like, we know we're good people, we know we have things to offer the world, but maybe things have been disappointing for so long that it's like you can't even feel your own goodness. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory on some level. So to bring it back to my weird example, it's like you're a fixed fire sign. Your purpose is to shine your light bright so that people gather around you and around your warmth, and that you kind of help build community in that way. However that pans out for you. That's kind of like your general vibe as a sign. And people told you like, oh, well, we really need someone to be this lighthouse over here on this cliff over here. You've been standing there for so long. No one's ever come by to say hello. You've never seen any evidence that you've like helped steer any ships in the right direction. And that is like, you've been feeling chained to that spot maybe, or that like idea of who you thought you were supposed to be for so long, that there's just like this element of like maybe disappointment that's coming along with this decision to go your own way and to be your own maverick and to like build your own legacy. And that is all well and great, but I think that kind of with these cards, it's like the caution is just like, is there a part of you that is like still maybe like holding on to some resentment, or are you kind of in this mode of now just being totally rebellious? And so it's not saying, the reading isn't saying don't do what you're going to do. I think it's just saying like, also we got this Queen of Cups, so I think it's like just sit with your own emotions and maybe tend to your own disappointments and your own kind of wounds or whatever, and heal, like kind of do a little self-healing work, because there's this resistance to healing here too with this. It's like you're like, oh, I've like been stuck in place for long enough, like why would I continue to stick in place? And I think it's kind of like with the imagery I'm getting, especially with these two, is like, okay, maybe when you were standing on that lighthouse, you dropped something that was important to you, i.e. your heart. You lost, like, maybe your love for other people, of why you were doing what it was that you were doing in the first place, even though it was the wrong time and place. You maybe also kind of possibly got disconnected from your love of being yourself and your love of like your honor in what you do. So I think that the pause that's being asked right now with the Knight of Swords in reverse is kind of like clarifying your message moving forward. Doesn't mean like stop all progress in your life, because you got the King of Swords upright, right? So it's like you do know your message, you do have something to say, you do have like gifts, you do have a story to tell, you do have like this leadership quality about you that's really important. But these are kind of like steps, right? So it's like Knight comes before the King, right? Like you kind of graduate into being the king, and with this it's like when you're moving forward and manifesting, you want to be manifesting from a place of really being, even if you don't know what you're doing exactly, like on the physical, material, like practical levels, like I think you do want to know what you're doing on the emotional, spiritual, intentional, purpose level. Example, I'm doing a tarot channel, and I watch a lot of these tarot videos, and there are some no shade to any readers, of course, but there are some readers who read from a place of like, this is what so-and-so thinks about you, this is what you think about so-and-so, this is where the relationship is going. And those are fun to listen to, but I don't personally really like feel that that is in my highest good to deliver those kinds of messages. And that's my own soul searching, right? That's my own like exploring what is the purpose of me doing these tarot readings. It's, I think, to provide confirmation, to provide spiritual guidance, to help you get in touch with your own intuition, and to also work through maybe stuff I'm working through by kind of talking about these things with others. So that's where I'm coming from, and kind of clarifying what I'm giving and what it's giving me back means that when I deliver the messages, hopefully they're clearer, they're better, they're in the highest good of all. And so maybe, though, I could like do this work from a place of like, wow, I really want a job where I'm my own like I'm my own boss, and I don't have to answer to anyone, and I'm making my own hours, and that's my priority. So I'll just say whatever I need to say to get lots of views and do clickbait stuff and just tell people what they want to hear so that I get popular. But then it's like I've lost connection to my heart. Then I've lost connection to why it is that this was important to me in the first place, because I'm maybe not like emotionally dealing with you know, my own like scarcity mindset or something, or like my own fears that people won't like me if I'm authentic. That's sort of, I hope that makes sense, but that's what I'm talking about. It's like, it's not just the physical action of like, and I still don't know what I'm doing, but it's like, if I'm doing this from a place of like, I at least have my own personal intentions clear, and I'm making it up as I go, and I'm figuring it out as I go, and I'm making shifts as I go, that's all well and good. But as long as that message is clear and I'm in touch with my heart and not kind of acting from like a wounded place of just trying to like break free of the mold just for the sake of breaking free of the mold, but breaking free of the mold because I'm in touch with my own emotional guidance and I have something to say and I'm going to create it one step at a time. Yeah. And then the last two cards I got for you are Laughing and Crying and Twin. So, Laughing and Crying and Twin. Well, Twin talks about like soulmate energy. And it talks about how like we come and go into our lives over lifetimes, if you believe such things. And so it's like your brother in this life could have been your wife in your last life. Like gender and dynamics, like specific roles are not necessarily, like my mom might have been my daughter in my past life or something, right? Like, but the souls are always connected. And even though the nature of our relationships change, like the nature of the bond never changes, right? The love that's underlying all of it is always there. And then we also got Laughing and Crying, which I personally, I've had multiple moments in my life of laughing and crying at the same time, where like it was almost like usually because things were so bad that they were just like absurd. So it was like hilarious that things were the way they were, even though they were really sad. So the reason I bring that up is because I feel like this is like a really good purging card. And that was something I was talking about over here with this lose your heart and that pause with the Knight of Swords and the Four of Swords and then the Queen of Cups is like Leo. Like I feel like within all this, like you're excited to move forward in a new direction, but it feels like your heart kind of got like bumped along the way. Like there was something for you about your heart that just faced this great disappointment and kind of like maybe you lost a little touch with yourselves or with the twin. Like why it is you do what you do for who you do it for. And I think this is like a really key part of your growth right now is these two, which is let yourself feel all the feelings you feel in regards particularly to relationships. And that might be work dynamics, that might be friends, that might be especially if this is in regards to your gift. Maybe you have this great talent for painting, but there have been people in the past who said, why are you painting that way? You're not very good, you need to do it differently, or like etc. Or there are people better than you, but don't bother. Like just all that negative kind of devil energy that you've overcome that you're now healing from by getting in touch with your own emotions, especially feminine side of your emotions, right? Like, holding space for yourself and really diving into your own intuition and kind of reclaiming what was maybe lost in the past. It feels like a lot of this is like trusting that the gifts you have to give are going to connect with the right people, with twin and soulmate energy. What I'm feeling for you is that, you know, if we bring it back to you being a lighthouse and you were standing on a cliff waiting for you to serve your purpose and help people, and you weren't, you know, nothing was happening really, so it felt like you were wasting your time and unappreciated. It's like maybe there's a community who've always wanted a lighthouse and always dreamt of it, and that's your soulmate, like, community, right? Like, those are the people who have been waiting for you and looking for you and wanting someone exactly like you for their whole lives. And they're out there, and maybe you just haven't found them yet. It's kind of like finding your niche, like whatever it is about your gifts that have been gone unappreciated up to this point, or someone telling you to do it a different way. It's like, really, there's a community out there for you that is going to respond and resonate with what you do, how you do it, why you do it. And the more in touch you are with yourself, and the more healed you are within yourself, and the more you've, like, let go of your resentments, then the more it's really going to, like, bloom and blossom and, like, move forward swiftly and greatly, and, like, you're going to build that legacy that you've always dreamt of. And I think with a lot of that comes a lot of laughing and crying, right? Like, laughing at how absurd it is that for so long you've gone so unappreciated, and crying and grieving for how long it is that you've gone unappreciated and, like, unseen, and laughing because now you're being seen and appreciated, and, like, crying because it feels so good to finally be seen and appreciated. And that's from this. And so I kind of feel like really what you're doing is you're cleansing yourself of all this past stuff, heavy emotions that maybe you were unconsciously carrying from having kind of gotten so disappointed and so heavy. And that's a lot of this Queen of Cups energy too, is feeling all that stuff. Just feeling all the feels. Feeling all the feels, so that when you have your new fresh start, which you will and you are, and you're moving towards it by building it yourself and moving in the direction towards that community of soulmates who really appreciate and love you and see you and need you, then when you have that, it's going to be from a really good place. Because what if you were doing your new path hanging on to some of those resentments? Then you might read into new situations with the fear of the old patterns, or kind of the defensiveness, or the loss of the goodness. So it's like, basically, Leo, in long story short, you are ending an old way of doing things. You are moving towards new directions that you are creating yourself, of how you are going to give your gifts to the world based on you knowing yourself. And it's going to be beautiful because you are manifesting it and you are creating it, and it's going to be really in alignment with who you are. But as you do move forward with your new message, or just your clarified message, it's important to keep in mind that it's okay to, like, feel what you need to feel and grieve and heal from the past and laugh and cry about it, so that you can kind of reclaim and get in touch with your heart, so that you have the full power of the gifts that you have to give as you build your legacy with a new community of soulmate type figures, people, community. All right. Well, that was that. If you liked it, great. You can like and subscribe. And if you didn't, you probably stopped listening. And, comment and let me know what you want to know. Or let me know what you want me to know. I don't know. Leo, you're going to be great. I love you, and I'll see you again next time. Bye.